Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to the Anonymous Throwdown Podcast. We are back talking about Joker 2, or as they call it, Joker Folie Deux, or something. I don't speak French, but that's the title of this new film. And this film is on pace to, it's going to be a close competition of which will lose more money, Joker 2 or Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. It's going to be a neck and neck race. Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League lost $200 million, and this movie's on pace to lose $150 million. So, but it's subject to change. We're just in week one. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But DC is continuing their missteps in the last film release before the new James Gunn and Peter Safran regime. And James Gunn was very, very quick to announce that he had nothing to do with this movie. In fact, he announced that before it even came out, that he washed his hands clean to let everybody know that he had nothing to do with this film. So we are going to be talking about spoilers in this episode. So if you don't want to be spoiled for the film, be sure to click away, because we are going to be delving into it, because there is a lot to discuss. Jake, do you want to start with your thoughts on the film?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know that I've ever seen a movie that's so beautifully crafted. I mean, I feel like God might need to delay the second coming, because he's going to have to rethink the spectacle there. After talk, I can't even finish that sentence, dude. I didn't even see the movie. Heard enough. I know that I don't need to see it because I wouldn't like it. Honestly, my reaction to this is I just don't understand the mentality that a lot of these directors like Todd Phillips have. And I guess that it could be argued the same is true of Ryan Johnson. I almost said Ryan Phillips. Ryan Johnson on The Last Jedi, where these directors come in and clearly don't like the source material, and then like dedicate years of their lives to crafting a film based around an IP that they don't even like. And then it's just a disaster because it comes out and nobody likes the movie. And the analogy that I put on Twitter as the bad reviews were coming out was like, yeah, like if I were to go buy some ice cream and I said, hey, I want a scoop of chocolate, and they handed me a scoop of pistachio to like surprise me, I'm not going to be happy. I'm going to be like, this isn't what I ordered. And obviously we want our expectations to, you know, maybe be challenged a little bit. Like in The Dark Knight, I don't know that people went into that movie knowing for sure that Harvey Dent was going to become Two-Face or that Rachel was going to die. Like there were definitely some twists and turns there. But at the end of the day, it felt like a Batman movie. Versus if I got the rights to make a Batman movie and made a movie about like a dude playing baseball, and he's called the Batman because he never strikes out or something. Like, I feel like I'd be in the wrong to then act confused as to why the audience isn't liking the movie. So yeah, I thought this was a huge miscalculation. And it's clear that Todd Phillips only did it because he knew that like an original movie wouldn't have sold nearly as well. He's using the Joker IP to get attention. The first movie had a great performance from Joaquin Pheonix, but even that one was like super derivative of King of Comedy, and everything that wasn't derivative of King of Comedy was derivative of Taxi Driver. So yeah, it's disappointing that we all expected to see Joker in a Joker movie, but we did, and we didn't get that.
And Marcel, you're putting up the budget of $200 million. Did you see $200 million in that film? Or to me, it could have been made for $10 million. But
this movie could have been made most likely for $50 million like the first movie was, but they got Lady fucking Gaga on here and all this other shit. And they made, I don't know. It seems so unnecessary. I'm not going to watch the movie either. I'm not going to spend money on this shit. It looks like it's going to be one of the worst movies. I mean, I hear people walking out left and right. You know, I'm not going to, torture myself with this type of content. But realistically, it's like nobody really wanted, if they wanted a Joker sequel, it wasn't this. Like, this is the furthest thing from a Joker sequel that anybody wanted from the first. So you're alienating the people that wanted, something kind of similar to the first movie, because from what I'm hearing, this is completely way off of what even was the first movie. You're alienating comic book fans. Who is this even for? What audience is this trying to capture? Because I genuinely can't even understand who is this trying to like, appease to. And it just looks horrible. There's scenes that I think Zack Snyder would actually start jerking off to, the Joker scene in prison where he happens to get something happen to him brutally, but we're not going to say here. But, even like Zack Snyder's the type of guy to be like, he would let that happen to Batman in his movie. That's a literal quote that he said. So I think Zack Snyder might actually like this type of movie and like this Joker. Besides that, I think that this movie is it's a pile of shit from what I'm hearing. The ending sounds like a pile of shit. I can't believe they did what they're doing. I genuinely, like, is that like a real ending? Because I haven't seen the movie, but if that's a real ending, like where the guy like kills Arthur and carves his own face, is that real?
Yeah, so I'll walk through the spoilers. I'll hit the main sort of highlights of the spoilers in the film. So a couple of things. The first of which being, and Marcel, if you could just mute, there's a little bit of static in your mic. Couple of things. So at the start of the film, first of all, Harley Quinn is a bait and switch in terms of her character. First of all, she's not even named Harley Quinn. Her name is like Lee. And the main thing with her is that she actually admitted herself into Arkham on purpose to be around Arthur. She's actually rich. She's not from this like she's criminal background that she claims. So her whole facade was basically BS. She was basically like a super fan of Joker and wanted to be around him. So that's one of the first plot twists in the film. The second plot twist of sorts is surrounding the Arthur. It's insinuated that he is sexually assaulted in the film. And third, he never really becomes Joker in the movie, which I guess is like the biggest plot twist of all. There are sort of flashback, like sort of visions that he has, but he's not really the Joker in the courtroom. He does wear the Joker outfit and makeup, but he's not really the Joker. And then also at the end of the courtroom scene, which is the majority of the movie, he says he doesn't want to be Joker anymore. So then those are kind of a lot of the big plot twists. The courthouse blows up for some reason because, I don't know, they just didn't really know what to do in the movie. So they're like, okay, we'll just blow up the courtroom, make it interesting, I guess. And then at the end of the film, he's put back into Arkham. He's told that he has a visitor on the way. And then he is brutally stabbed multiple times and he dies. And then in that process, the person who stabbed him was carving the sort of smile into his face. And the insinuation is that the person who killed him is the real Joker. So those were kind of the directions that they took.
What
now,
the fuck is that big pile of garbage? Jesus Christ. I didn't think wait, isn't there Harvey Dent too? Didn't Harvey Dent? Wasn't he involved somehow?
Yes, Harvey Dent was in it. Yeah, in the courtroom scene. So here's one of the things I wanted to talk about first that I thought was really interesting, which is that, one, as soon as this movie started bombing, Todd Phillips, the director, immediately came out and said, this is my last DC movie. I'm not doing any more, as if he wouldn't have been fired after this, of course. So it's like, you can't fire me because I quit kind of thing. So he just quit before he got fired and is pretending that he's done. So that was interesting. Next thing I thought was interesting is he came out and because the fans are outraged at this movie got a D cinema score. And I just wanted to give context, like bad superhero movies get a B, like a B plus. It's really, really hard to get a B minus. Your movie has to be horrible. To get a D is basically impossible. Like it has to be one of the worst movies ever made to get something that low. Okay, so this is the lowest reviewed cinema score superhero movie of all time. Never been lower. Think of Madam Web, think of Ant-Man and the Wasp. They all did better than this movie in terms of the cinema score testing, which is just based on audience responses and when audiences come out to the film and they're asked a series of questions. That's how the cinema score is constructed. The thing I thought was interesting is Todd Phillips also said he was never Joker. This Arthur Fleck was never Joker. So why are people so mad that he's not Joker? And it's like, okay, sorry, I missed the part that one, the movie is called Joker. That's the first thing. Second thing, in the first movie, the Joker says, "Can you call me the Joker?" He says that to Murray. before he goes on the TV. And so, yeah, my apologies for thinking it was the Joker, because the movie is called it and he asked to be called it. And he also clearly resembles the character physically. But silly me, why would I think it was the Joker?
I was even going to say the same thing. Like, I saw that earlier and I'm like, well, doesn't he himself in the first movie, before anybody like idolizes him, like realistically, like too crazily, doesn't he call himself the Joker? He names himself the Joker. It's not even an idea that was given to him by the city. So, you know, whatever the fuck. Todd Phillips is like somewhere off in like a fucking island hiding away after this movie got released so he can avoid all the backlash from what comes with it. And it's just, yeah, it's funny to see at least him as a director try to like justify kind of like doing just like a shitty Joker story, because that's all it really is. It's not really anything like really. The first movie I would say is really decent. Like, it's not like that bad of an origin for the Joker, but to put this, you know, as its second movie, to basically say, hey, this Joker is not the Joker. He doesn't want to be Joker. There's another Joker that we didn't get to follow. Like, well, now that other Joker is the one that I wanted to follow the whole time. That was like seeing Arthur. So whatever. I think that this movie is a stinker and deserves to have a WB lose a bunch of money like they did with Suicide Squad, honestly. And this whole year's been a really bad year for superhero movies. It's been weird.
It has been a bad year for superhero movies. Like, didn't Madam Web come out this year? But anyway, the thing that worked for me with the first movie was the fact that it kind of felt like the thesis in The Killing Joke when he talks about, if I'm going to have an origin, I'd like it to at least be multiple choice or something. And I felt like the reason the first movie worked is they made him clearly an unreliable narrator, to the point where the ending could be interpreted so many different ways, to the point where I remember people saying, this isn't even really his origin. This is just like something he thought up while he was in Arkham, of like, wouldn't it be funny if that's how it started? And so when they announced they were doing a sequel, I remember thinking the really tricky part of that is that you're either going to have to say, no, the first movie is like 1000% canon. It is what happened. It is his origin. There's no wiggle room for it to be something else. Or you have to imply that it didn't happen. And that feels kind of weird too. So my pitch was always have Joaquin Pheonix come back in like more of a cameo role and have the movie follow Harley Quinn and have it be like a Silence of the Lambs type movie where, you know, he's slowly corrupting her. And it's one of those movies where he only gets like 15 minutes of screen time, but he does a good job with the role. And, you know, you could explore other areas of these characters. And then when they started announcing, no, it is going to be a direct sequel, it's going to be a musical, it's going to be like a courtroom drama, some of it's going to be set in Arkham Asylum, I still thought that there was a lot of potential there. And I was kind of excited to see, like, will we see any of Todd Phillips' takes on characters like Jervis Tetch or the ventriloquist or, you know, Poison Ivy or characters like this, since he's going to be in Arkham for half the movie. But no, instead we get a deconstruction of the character where, no, this isn't actually Joker. And Joker is just a social construct. It's just this idea that the city has and wants him to live up to, but it's not really real. And it's a really dumb idea. And the problem is that Todd Phillips always treats these so pretentiously. Like, the scripts are written in a way where it seems like they're trying to come off as so, like, thought-provoking and interesting. But it's just not. I mean, it's a very basic reimagining of a character that deconstructs him in a non-interesting way. And again, kind of like I mentioned, that idea of like, what if Batman was like a batter for a baseball team? It's like, what if you made a Superman movie where instead of him being a Kryptonian, he's like a dude who flies a red news chopper, and that's his whole shtick. He doesn't like fly around or anything. He's just a regular human. Like, people would be pissed, and it would be weird if the director of that movie acted offended that people didn't like it.
These directors like Zack Snyder and Todd Phillips, they take the word deconstruction too fucking literally. Like, you don't have to strip everything from the character and build your own character in a worse way. you're supposed to take like the best of the character and kind of like make it a little bit more, I guess, not as pretentious as they did it, because the Joker, like, that's not even, you could literally do it without Batman, and it's not Batman. Like, it's not Batman. All those characters right there, you could literally rename each and every single one of them, and you could get away with it without being a Batman IP. And even I would assume with this one too, I don't think that there's a lot of like Batman lore within the Joker 2. Kobe, can you actually confirm that? Is there like a lot of like cameos or like, connections to Bruce Wayne and what happened to him
There's
after
like
Joker
Wayne
2?
Tower in the background, and there's Harvey Dent in it, and there's Arkham Asylum. There's not like a ton of cameos, but it's definitely in there.
Okay, so yeah, my point is that you could probably strip all of that anyway and still have a movie that's identical to the Joker 2 and to the Joker. And
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
And I feel like with like even Zack Snyder, again, I keep harkening back to him. It's just because I like his movies, but again, if you took out Batman and put in Punisher, like you could have a really good Superman Punisher movie. But now that it's Batman, it's not that good anymore. You have Batman calling in strafing runs on people and mowing down cars and ripping them in half. It's like, it's honestly not that interesting when you have these people that think they're a lot smarter than what they are, but what they're doing is like just so much worse for the character in the long term than what they could be doing if they just stay kind of faithful to the character.
Well,
So
exactly. Like, because
go ahead,
and
Jake.
I'll let you sec. I just want to go off that really quickly. Like, does anyone actually think it's more interesting how they did Harley Quinn here than they've done her in the comics, where she's like slowly manipulated by Joker, and she's this therapist who slowly turns into someone who works closely with him and gets romantically involved with him? And Mad Love is still one of my favorite episodes of Batman the Animated Series. So to like strip that aspect away from her character in the pursuit of this like forced realism just is not nearly as interesting. That's all I wanted to say. Go ahead, Kobe.
Well, I completely agree with that. And you make a great point as well, that the first film, it is a reimagining of sorts, but if you really strip it down fundamentally to what it actually is, it is the Killing Joke. It's the idea, as you mentioned, that one bad day, like that whole concept of one bad day can make you insane. And that's kind of what happens to Joker in the first film. He sort of has a downtrodden life, exactly as we see the Joker in The Killing Joke. He has a sort of low-paying job. I guess the one thing that they did reimagine is that he doesn't actually have a girlfriend. He's imagining that he does, whereas the Joker in the comic book actually does have a girlfriend. But it's still fundamentally the same concept, that something really, really bad happens to the character and he kind of goes insane and goes off his rockers a little bit. And so in that regard, it's not as much of a subversion as one would think. It's just kind of an expanded story of The Killing Joke with a little bit more. It's substantially longer, given that The Killing Joke graphic novel is like 60 pages, and to make it an hour animated film, they had to add in all these extra scenes and that kind of thing. So it's fairly short. Now, the second film, this is I guess you could say this is a deconstruction for sure, because it is like yeah, it's basically the Joker doesn't even want to be the Joker, which is complete BS and is nowhere in the comics. And this is the point that I always get flamed for by the nerds on Twitter that like love these movies. And of course, I love many of the movies too. But when I say like it doesn't make any sense for the live action portrayal to be so different from the comics when we've never had a true comic book live action adaptation. And what I mean by that is exactly to your point of the Harley Quinn Mad Love story with Joker and Harley, that origin story. It would be one thing if we already had a movie exploring that. If we already got a 2-hour film exploring Harley's origin. Okay, we got Suicide Squad. It's a 2-minute flashback scene in a music video. That doesn't count. Okay. We've never really had the Harley live action origin story.
You've probably watched that so many times, it was probably 2 hours at that point. Come on. I know you replay that shit over and over again.
I have seen that movie a lot, but anyway, that's besides the point. So here's the thing. Release the haircut. No, I'm just kidding. So here's the thing is this is, we've never really gotten the true Joker live action origin story. And so if they had just made the Killing Joke live action, I would be fine with that. I think you could make an entire trilogy out of Joker's origin. To be honest, the first film kind of does that, more or less. The second one is weird. And what I want to ask you guys is, why do you think Todd Phillips did this? Why do you think he, in a sense, sort of disavowed and distanced himself from the first movie and kind of undid it? I have my own thoughts and theories, but I'm curious to know what you guys think.
I think to start off is you've reposted something earlier today about how there's like a bunch of red flags and shit like that and warnings about what, is to come, like the things before the movie even came out, what they said about, the warnings. And one of them was the fact that WB had no control over this movie. And I think that that's a big, big thing that contributed, because at the core, I'm not going to lie, I don't think Todd Phillips is that good of a director. I mean, like, what has he done? The first Hangover movie was pretty good, right? Okay. 2 and 3 were garbage. And then the Joker, which was, let's be honest, probably somewhat mandated and kind of controlled by WB in the backgrounds. Now that he has full control again, he's just going balls to the wall with whatever stupid idea that he had from the beginning of the freaking franchise that now he has unlimited reign to do. So I think that's one thing, is that he could just do it now. Like, whatever stupid idea comes to his head, he's one of those dude bros, like I said, like Zack Snyder, that would get Joker sexually assaulted in a freaking prison, just like how Zack Snyder said he would do that to Batman if he adapted Batman in certain ways. It's the same way. He just got away with it because now he can. And I honestly think in many ways, he probably did sabotage like himself, like in many ways. He probably did make the worst movie imaginable. And somehow WB was just like, okay, yeah, sure, we're going to release this shit. We're going to give you $200 million to make this piece of garbage. And it just happened. So, yeah, I think it's just because he can. And he did. It was, it's sad. What about you, Jake? Why do you think Todd Phillips made this disaster of a movie?
Well, I don't know. I think you guys have probably seen this, but there was like a flow chart of like how the movie came to be. And step one was that the movie came to Joaquin Pheonix in a dream. And I'm like, what? Like, that's such a bizarre way for this movie.
That's the one I was talking about. Yeah, that's the one I was talking about.
Yeah. Like, it starts as a dream for Joaquin Pheonix. And then they decide, hey, let's make a Broadway show that's Joker 2. And then we'll tour it around the States. And like, I just don't understand. It feels really like, and I don't know. I'll be honest. Like, if my nearby big theater in Salt Lake City had hosted that, I would have gone. That would have been kind of cool and unique and different. But it's very bizarre. I'm honestly dumbfounded because I'm already seeing all of these conspiracy theories that, no, it's actually a brilliant film because Todd Phillips was making a statement on society and how we just want these characters to be these characters. And isn't that sad that we want the Joker to be the Joker?
He understands mental health a lot better than we do, okay? We're the ones that are... This is exactly what Todd Phillips was going for. This is the exact reception from the public that he wanted, was for us to think it was garbage.
Well, and the other thing that I've heard is that he like wanted to give Warner Brothers a huge middle finger for some reason. And I'm like, why would you spend 5 years of your life developing a movie that's just supposed to like screw over Warner Brothers after you made $1 billion from using their IP on the first one? It doesn't make sense. I don't think he was trying to sabotage himself or the film. I think he genuinely thought it was a brilliant idea. I'm not sure why. I guess for the same reason that Rian Johnson thought to make the 8th entry in the main Star Wars franchise a film that like deconstructs the Jedi and changes everything we know about the universe was a good idea. Like, I don't know. The only time I've really seen this done well in a comic book movie was in Batman Begins, where they like kind of took the Lazarus pit away from Ra's al Ghul. And because that movie was so much about Batman building up his own myth, that to have the main antagonist be a famously supernatural character from the comics and have the plot twist be that was his myth that he developed. I thought that was a cool idea, but now we're seeing it done just like because they can, kind of like you've mentioned, Marcel. It's like, I think he did this because he could. And I also think he did it because he realized there was a good chance it would make a lot of money. What we're seeing is that's not the case. And for a long time, where IP was able to carry a film, whether it was good or not, the same reason 2016 Suicide Squad made a good chunk of money at the box office, that doesn't happen anymore. If your movie isn't good, people don't show up for it. I don't know. I don't know what his expectations were. I don't know why he decided to not do any screenings for it. And I just don't know what he thought the reception would be. My guess is that he thought it would be mixed, but similar to the first film, I think he thought it would really challenge everyone's thoughts on the character. That's the closest approximation that I can come up with as to why he would have spent so much time making this movie. Was he thought it was an interesting twist on the character. It's like, we're the Jokers. Like, Joker isn't Joker. We're the Jokers for wanting him to be Joker. And it's bizarre. That's kind of why I think he did it.
He essentially stole the Walking Dead Negan storyline, where they're all Negan. They're all Negan. Just a title that passes down. One thing that I do think for the Joker that is interesting is that the first movie had a lot of, like, I want to say bad reception, but it had a lot of media coverage. And this movie definitely didn't have that same type of buzz that the first movie. Because the first movie, I know everybody here probably remembers, like, people thought that there was going to be mass shootings in these freaking theaters when people go and see the Joker, and that it's going to relate to the incel so much it's going to cause an incel freaking riot around the world. Like, people were genuinely talking about, like, the first Joker movie like that. And I think that probably had a lot to do with its success and people going to see it, because there was, I think, a lot of talk saying, oh, there's this one moment where Joker does something so insane. I don't think this movie has any of those moments. And like Kobe even said, Joker doesn't even want to be Joker in this movie. So it's like, what's the actual hook to see this movie? Just to see Lady Gaga and Joaquin Pheonix fucking sing around? Is that why I'm going to watch Joker 2? Is to watch a fucking musical? Like, it's so backwards. I don't know what they thought they were doing, but yeah, the first movie succeeded for a reason.
I want to expand on that, because what you said about the first film, I think people forget, because it was 5 years ago, that you're exactly right. That was like a crazy moment. Like, this movie, it got $1 billion because it was R-rated, but it was like the #1 talk of the world for like a month, because the media freaked out that it was going to cause mass shootings and that it was going to cause people to be, and it's not necessarily, it ended up not being true. Nothing happened. It's not necessarily crazy. Like, there are some times where people will watch a movie that's really captivating and embody like traits of a villain. Like, for instance, the person that tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan said he was like, he wanted to be like Taxi Driver or something, or some movie, right. I forget. Yeah. So some people are crazy, for sure, of course, as we know. But here's the thing: is my sense is that Todd Phillips made a movie, and he didn't like the way it was sort of interpreted or understood. Like, I don't think that he liked the way that people read into it, this sort of populist angle of like supporting like that Joker is kind of like the common man. Like, he's just an average guy who has a shitty job and a shit life, and empathizing with that person who he's kind of presented as like an anti-hero in the film, even though he kills a bunch of people. But he's kind of framed as an anti-hero. And so I think that Todd Phillips, a lot of Hollywood people in general, kind of freaked out with how it was interpreted, or who it resonated with. And again, it didn't end up happening any of the things that they were worried about, of mass shootings or incel violence or whatever. I mean, it was all BS. But to me, it was almost like a middle finger to the people who liked the first movie. And that's kind of what I felt he was going for, is in a sense being like, oh, no, don't get the wrong idea. Like, I don't want you to read this into it. But again, it is the first movie. That is the origin story of the Joker. Like, unless we're saying the Killing Joke inspires incel violence or whatever, then, or like the Joker as a character does in general, I don't understand how you can say that, because the first film is basically just the Killing Joke with slightly different scenes, but it's the same idea.
I think people really hearkened on the fact that he stalked a girl, and he was in love with a girl that wasn't even like knowing of his existence. That's one incel thing. And then another thing was the whole like in speech about what do you get when you leave a society or something with a mentally ill person, and he starts killing people. So that's one thing. I could see it. I could see how they could like clickbait it into making it seem like it was like some type of incel, I don't know, icon for the Joker. But that is a good point. It's like saying like the Killing Joke is also like an incel type of thing, even though that, let's be honest here, Joker in the comments before he like turned into Joker, he was kind of a Chad. I mean, he wasn't no walking Pheonix, you know what I mean? He was pretty good looking. He got a wife too.
His girlfriend was knocked up. Yeah, his wife was knocked
exactly,
up. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's true.
Yeah, Joker's like I won't even be able to call him an incel. He's had like 2 fine ass bitches in the comments that love him. So I mean, you can't even call him an incel. What the fuck? I guess the Joker in the movie is, but even then, Joker got Lee. So what are we talking about? I guess it is a big little
thing. Was famous. He was famous. He was so beloved that like girls were literally moving into prison on purpose to be with him. I mean, he was like a chick magnet. Let's be honest. He's kind of the opposite of an incel.
But to be fair, if you're saying what you're saying, and they basically, the first movie was that incel icon, and now the second movie is deconstructing that incel icon, and I guess like in many ways people are seeing themselves in Joker. So Todd Phillips saw that, and he made Joker get sexually assaulted in prison and not want to be Joker no more. And that's crazy, bro. If that's the case, like that's an insane concept. Just
okay. And one last thing on this too is that Jake mentioned this, which I thought was such a great point, is that this is a trend of not just in Hollywood but all creatives in general, where something becomes very popular that a creative did, and they almost then become contrarian against the thing that became popular, in the sense that they almost didn't want it to be so liked. So like in Dune, for instance, and small spoilers for the books if you're not caught up on the books that came out decades ago, but the one after the first 2 movies that was made, which encompasses the first book, in the second book, he kind of is like, yeah, why would anybody like Paul Atreides? He sucks. Like that's kind of the whole thing in Dune Messiah. And it's like, I don't know, because we read the first book and we like him. Like, it's just weird. And then the same is true with Rian Johnson and Star Wars, as you mentioned. And you see that in this movie too, where it's almost like they make something and it becomes really popular, and then they get pissed off that it's popular, and then they want to be contrarian against it being popular.
Dude, that's like The Last of Us too. And I actually love The Last of Us too.
Great point. Great point.
When you look at it, people love Joel. They love the violence in it. They're like, yeah, this is all about it. And now in the next game, they immediately kill Joel, and every person that you kill has a name. Every dog that you kill is a friendly little puppy that you get a pet with Abby. And yeah, it's like a contrarian to the whole violence thing. It's like, oh, we're so against violence. Even though in the first game, that's what basically made the game the game. So yeah, people like that, and like the whole, I would assume it's a higher ups too, but it's hard to say that when Todd Phillips was in full control of the movie. You know what I mean? So it felt like it was maybe just his idea to be that contrarian and try to like go backwards from what Joker actually was. And it just failed. It failed. It's so sad, but it failed.
Last of Us 2 is a great example of what you're saying. And to Last of Us credit, it was more mixed, where some people loved it and some people hated it. Of course, like the people who hate it are probably more vocal, but it was definitely, there are people who love that game. I don't know of anybody that likes this. I don't think, and the thing is that the first film had a 70% Rotten Tomato score, actually in the 60s. So about a third of people didn't like the first film, but you're not going to win over that third of people in the second one. It doesn't appeal to anybody, so nobody will like it. And what's clear is that the whole movie, I think, is actually just one metaphor. And the metaphor, which we touched on earlier, is that we are Harley Quinn, and Harley Quinn only likes Arthur because he's Joker. She only likes him because he's famous and cool and caused this revolution and blah, blah, blah. And so as soon as he basically says, I don't want to be Joker anymore, she's like, oh, fuck you, you're lame, And so the whole movie is like a metaphor with musical numbers for some reason and boring courtroom scenes. So it's really, really bizarre. But Jake, what do you think about that whole idea of like the metaphor that we are Harley Quinn, and we don't really care about Arthur as the audience. We only care about the Joker.
There's been movies that have done that successfully. I just don't know why you'd do it with a Joker movie. Like that's the thing that I don't really understand. There's like an experimental film. It was originally a French film, and then the director did an American remake of his own movie. And it was called Funny Games. And the whole premise is it's like a home invasion movie, but it plays with the audience's expectations, and that like every time the killers are over taunting the people, it's really entertaining and interesting. And then every time they leave, it's really boring. And that movie was really mixed as well in terms of people enjoying it versus not enjoying it and not liking the violence in it and whatever. But there wasn't the expectation that it was Joker. Like, you could do this with really anyone. Like, it would be very bizarre for me to make a Green Goblin movie and have it be about Norman Osborn, like, trying to get sober off the, like, Green Goblin formula and, like, not wanting to be the Green Goblin. And, I mean, even that is sounding more interesting than what Joker 2 is. But to, like, have all the expectations, like, all these expectations behind the Joker IP and who he is and what he becomes. Like, I mean, imagine if in Arkham City, Mark Hamill's Joker started like crying, like, I'm just so sorry. Like, like we'd all be like, what the hell? Like, what is happening here?
Guys,
That's not
Arthur Fleck is actually the Jonkler. He's the Jonkler.
Oh my gosh, from Suicide Squad killed the Justice
Suicide
League.
Squad, exactly. Yeah, he's actually a Jonkler. I didn't even put it together. Someone just told me it's a perfect opportunity to call him that. If he's not really the Joker, then what the hell is he? He's the Jonkler. He's the giggler. The giggler's better because he literally giggles. He giggles every time. He can't control it. He's a giggler. You know what I mean? So I think the giggler is a lot better than the Joker.
He doesn't really laugh in this movie. He doesn't even really talk. He's like mute in the first 30 minutes. And yeah. So by the way, one of the big problems, the movie is horrible. Here's one of the other things about this movie is the marketing. Let's talk about the marketing. So one of the reasons this movie is getting panned and has a D cinema score is that they completely fucking lied about the movie in the marketing. They show all these badass scenes where they're like breaking out of prison and dancing and like throwing money and like walking down the steps. You know, that scene from the trailer where they're like, you know, walking down the steps. Most of the scenes in the trailer, I won't say most, but a lot of the scenes in the trailer are not in the movie. You notice that the trailer wasn't out of the 2 minutes, it wasn't 1 minute and 40 seconds of courtroom debate. Yeah, so it was misleading. There was no courtroom scenes in the trailer to my recollection. It was all like action scenes and cool stuff with Harley and Joker, and none of it was in the movie. So it's one of the biggest mistakes you can make in a movie is misleading the audience with the trailer. You know, you can ask M. Night Shyamalan and how he marketed The Village, you know, when it was a total, you can go to so many examples that it just never works out when you lie to the audience about what the movie actually is. And by the way, Joaquin Pheonix was in The Village too, by the way. So just a fun fact. So, you know, I think that that's a huge problem in the film. If they were more honest about what it was, it still would suck, but it would have been a little bit, our expectations were lowered. But people were just heartbroken by the movie. And John Campea made a great point about this too, which like with bad comic book movies like Venom and Venom, not so much, you know, Madam Web and what was the one with Jared Leto? Morbius. These sort of films, we kind of knew they were shit going into them, right? This is like, yeah, this movie's going to suck, so let's just go in for the lulz. This movie, nobody expected this to be shit. We all expected it to be like the best movie of the year. The first one almost won Best Picture. Like, it literally was nominated for Best Picture. He won Best Actor at the, Joaquin did. So we all were expecting a masterpiece, just like the first one was. And just they missed the mark by a lot, which was really, really shocking.
Well, so not only was the marketing very misleading, the thing that I always think is really funny when they do that is it's like, okay, so you understand what will get the audience invested in your movie. Like, you understand what we want to see. And I just don't understand how you mess this up. Like, even if you want to do a deconstruction of the character or whatever, I mean, because like the premise of a movie about Joker in Arkham Asylum sounds interesting. I'd watch that movie. You know, a courtroom drama that is really well written, like A Few Good Men or something, featuring Joker could be interesting. As you're talking, I'm starting to realize this should have just been a Two-Face movie. It should have been a movie about Harvey Dent because it can be or it can be a courtroom drama. And another big aspect of the Joker's characterization in this movie is they try to like play with the audience's expectations, like, oh no, he actually has dissociative identity disorder, so Arthur and the Joker are two different people living in the same body. Like, that would have been a much better execution if the character study was about Two-Face and they were doing like a Jekyll and Hyde type story. And you could even do your whole twist at the end of like, wait, the audience is kind of the bad guy of the picture because we all want to see Harvey Dent get half of his face ripped off. Like, that's what we're there for. And isn't it kind of sad that that's what we go to see? That's what our entertainment is or whatever. It's still, you know, pretentious as hell, but at least it works better with that character. I just don't know how you take so many interesting ideas and do the least possible interesting thing with all of them.
Hey, not to call you guys out or nothing, but this is exactly what you guys were thinking the Batman in that universe was with all of its realism. This man straight up turned Joker into not Joker. He's not even Joker. He doesn't even have like a similar name to Joker. It's Arthur. Like, what the hell is that? You know what I mean? That type of realism right there is garbage. The Penguin is doing better than the Joker sequel. I don't think anybody could have predicted that a Penguin series would have done better than the Joker sequel. Like, back then, if you tell people when the Joker came out that, yeah, you know, there's going to be a Penguin show, and this Penguin show is going to just be following around Penguin and him doing some crazy shit. And then you go over and you tell them that this Joker sequel is going to be a musical that's garbage. I don't think anybody would believe you whatsoever. But here we are in 2024. And we needed like a Joker series or even like a Two-Face series. That would have been cool to see, where Two-Face is kind of like trying to bring down Arthur in many ways, and you follow, you know, Joker or Two-Face like kind of trying to bring down Joker, and then like Harley Quinn comes in and kind of like sabotages that, and that's how Two-Face becomes Two-Face or whatever. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, whatever Todd Phillips is doing, he doesn't care about the comics, so that was all never going to be on the table anyway.
Well, I think Jake makes a great point that doing an R-rated case study of multiple Batman, like doing a trilogy, but with each of the three focusing on a different character. So the first one being Joker, the next one being Two-Face, and then the third being, you know, some other Batman villain. I don't know. That would be interesting. And then in the second one with Two-Face, then you could have Joker in it, in the background, you know, like Arthur Fleck. Actually, you could start. Here's how you could have done it. You could have started the second film following Two-Face as Harvey Dent, and it picks up at the end of the first one where Joker is like leading this army of people, and he started this whole movement of fans, and he's causing all this mayhem, and he's like the actual Joker from the comics. And the first film was his origin story, and then he ultimately becomes Two-Face and fighting the Joker in the second film. And then you could have a domino. So like each one leads into the next. That could have been interesting. But of course, you know, Lady Gaga singing and dancing, we could do that too.
But that would be a cool idea, is having like the last villain be the villain of the next movie. So like,
yes,
yeah, Joker's exactly. For Two-Face, and then Two-Faces for like, who knows, Penguin, and then Penguin's for like Mr. Freeze or something like that. Like, that would be really cool until like leads up to like a Batman movie or something. That would never happen because that would actually make a lot of money. That would be a good idea, but you know.
Oh, and here's one thing I wanted to get, Jake. I wanted to get, well, both your opinions, but we'll start with Jake. I want to get your thoughts on this. One thing I was thinking about with this movie is, you know, one thing that we always say as movie fans is like, the corporate, like greedy corporate overlords are always trying to control the directors. They're trying to control the creatives and ruin their vision and blah, blah, blah. And I think this movie really highlights that, like, the notes that are left by the studio or the quote unquote studio interference isn't always bad, as controversial as it will be to say, because I know what we all want to do on Twitter is like shit on the suits and just say that the creatives are amazing. But, there's something to be said that the Suits, if the Suits just made this movie and there was no Todd Phillips, let's be honest, it would have been better than Todd Phillips having 100% free reign. Probably the best, outcome would have been a little bit of compromise between the two. But I do think that we saw here, it doesn't always work out to give 100% creative freedom, and the corporate overlords are often wrong, but not always, as we saw here.
So for me, I really agree with that, and I always think that there's a healthy balance. One of my favorite things to read through is some of the horrible studio notes that have come through for popular movies. Like, one of my favorites was for Man of Steel, when Warner Brothers was like, no, you can't destroy Superman's ship at the end. And David S. Goyer's like, why not? And they're like, because then how's he going to get back to Krypton? And they're all like, did you miss the 30-minute introduction where Krypton blew up? Like, what are you even talking about? We've also seen situations like Zack Snyder's Justice League, where the studio was really scummy and did some horrible things, took advantage of a really tragic event in Snyder's personal life, and completely butchered the movie to the point where I would say Whedon's cut of Justice League is terrible. Like, it's a genuinely terrible movie with very few redeeming qualities. At the same point, I mean, Snyder's cut is 4 hours long. That's not going to make $1 trillion at the box office, because that's a hard sell, getting people to go sit for 4 hours and 20 minutes. So that's a great example where, if the creatives and executives had worked well together, we probably would have ended up with a 3-hour-long movie that would have had the best moments from his cut. Maybe would have cut out some of the filler. But even with Joker 2, to an extent, I blame the creatives for letting a guy who doesn't like Joker make a Joker movie without with complete creative freedom. It was a really bizarre move. But yes, I do think that there needs to always be a healthy balance between the two, because otherwise you end up with movies that are just too long. And yeah, I guess the best solution is to maybe set some of those parameters early on, like hire someone that actually likes and respects the source material and has a cool take on it, and then give them as much creative freedom as possible while still holding boundaries. Like, your movie can't be over 3 hours long, because we need to have theatrical distribution. We'll get more show times if it's under 3 hours than if it's longer. So that's where I think the sweet spot is. That's where we've gotten the
Here's
best.
my question, though.
Yeah.
Here's my question. Was it obvious he hated the Joker? Because to me, the first one, it wasn't obvious. And then this movie came out, and I was like, oh, he hates the Joker.
I think it was obvious.
You're glitching out a bit, Marcel.
I think that he totally hated the Joker even in that first movie. Like, he didn't really follow anything from the comics with the Joker. Like, the biggest thing that he did was give this guy a crazy laugh and made him kill people. And in retrospect, like, really looking at the character of the Joker, that character and the one that we got in the movie are way fucking different. Like, they're not even on the same retrospect. Like, it's not even funny. And now, even looking back at on, the Joker 2, it's really obvious that he did not care about the Joker. And most of those Joker things that we got in the movie were probably from the WB. That kind of helped him out a little bit. I think he wanted Arthur to carve his face, which would have just been, and Nolan told him not to, or something like that, which is just like, well, at that point, now you're just trying to copy something else that just already happened, not even like a decade ago. So, like, what at this point are you, what character do you actually like? You know what I mean? Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, I don't think it was necessarily obvious that he disliked Joker. I remember, like, when that first movie came out, everyone was like, he should be the head of DC Studios. He should be the producer. He should be the Kevin Feige of all DC projects going forward. And we definitely dodged a bullet with that. That would have been a disaster. I will say, even after seeing the first movie, I felt like he was a bigger fan of Martin Scorsese than DC Comics, because there were way more nods and references and fan service to, like, King of Comedy and Taxi Driver than anything from DC. But what did kind of highlight that maybe he wasn't a huge fan of DC Comics was in all of his interviews surrounding the film. He kind of made it clear he didn't want to like have this turn into a Batman versus Joker movie eventually. He really and he even kind of alluded to the idea that he wasn't really interested in doing a Joker movie. This was kind of an independent idea that he realized would make more money if the Joker IP was involved. So that was when I started cluing into like, okay, he's maybe not the best pick for this position.
Well, my thing too is that the Batman things that we do get in the Joker movie don't really feel natural. Like the Wayne's deaths, like that just feels very unnatural and almost like too fan servicey. Like I know there's a hard way to do it without feeling fan servicey, but just the way he was doing it felt forced. It almost felt in many ways like it was a reshoot, in my opinion. But just the way he talked about it, Jake, you're right. We dodged more than a bullet. We dodged a fucking cannon. Because if he started making Superman movies in the same mindset as he made the Joker and the Joker 2, oh fuck, we would have been in big trouble. But even with this movie too. What was that?
I'm telling you, Calvin instead of Kal-El in a news chopper.
Calvin and news chopper. Yep, with a big S right on the side. He's Superman. Yeah, the guy with the fucking helicopter.
But he's not really Superman. We're the Supermen. The audience is the Superman.
No, and also the people that read his newspaper are the Supermen. That's who the real Supermen are.
And also, he's evil. That's never been right. Yeah, no, it's. I think the thesis I keep going back to is just I don't understand if he doesn't like this character, why he wanted to dedicate 5 years to just flipping off the studio and the fans of the first film of the Joker. Oh, yeah, money, but it's just a weird project. I'm honestly surprised that Joaquin Pheonix even did it. He's dropped out of like everything lately.
Hey, isn't this his first sequel too? Like he's never done sequels. Like this is like his first like movie he's ever came back to.
Yep.
Wait, can we discuss how the last 5 movies he agreed to do, he quit the day before it started filming, but this movie he stuck out. This is the movie he showed up for, and it's because he got paid $20 million. Let's be honest. That's why. Because those indie movies, their budget was probably a couple of million tops, and so he's probably like, I'm sure he was getting paid on it, but he was like, I don't really care. Oh, 20 million? Okay, we're shooting for what, 45 days? I'm making what, 500K a day? All right, I think I can fit that in. Yeah, we'll make that work. That's
my favorite one. My favorite one was the one that he took to a director and he was going to produce, and he was all excited about the script. And then days before filming, he's like, I'm uncomfortable with this sex scene. And they're like, oh, well, it's your material. Like, you brought it to us. And he's like, I'm going to quit. This is.
Like, bro, you could have just rewrote the script. Like, he just got so lazy, bro. He's like, I'm out of here. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, he's an interesting character. I don't know that he'd be the best person to work with on the set, honestly. But
hey, I'm not gonna lie, he should have pulled out a Joker too, if we're being honest. Shit, what happened there?
Yes, I would agree. So, I don't know. To me, this film isn't even canon, and I know that's like, okay, well, WB decides what's canon. I don't, blah, blah, blah. But, I can have my own headcanon of what I believe to be and not to be canon. And to me, this movie, it is one of the rare instances where a sequel is so bad, it kind of ruins the first one, because when you look at the end of that first movie, if you fast forward a little bit and see him getting like stabbed over and over again in a jail cell and getting, being like, I don't want to be Joker anymore in the courtroom for no reason. Then the first movie, and it's kind of lame. It's kind of pointless, So to me, I'm going to pretend this movie just didn't happen.
Are you guys aware also that they had like 3 endings allegedly for this movie? And the only reason
do you know what the other endings are?
I know that one of the other ones was that Lee kills Joker. She's like so disenfranchised that he doesn't want to be Joker that she shoots him on like the famous Joker steps. But then that started leaking, And so they hurried and switched it out with this even less sensical ending with a character who like has no buildup or establishment as the next Joker.
It actually would have been better if she killed him. I mean, both suck, but that would have been a little bit more interesting.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, just having somebody come up and be Joker now, like just like randomly take the mantle of Joker. What is that even a character that was like, even talked about or progressed in the movie, or was it just some
I
random guy?
don't know. At a maximum, he's like a side character with like a couple of scenes, like a small role. But he might be a rando.
That's actually wild, bro. Because like just having somebody that's like not important to the plot just kill the main character of your last two movies is nuts. It's nuts. And Lee or Harley Quinn or whatever, her killing Joker would have at least made sense in the plot, and then at least she would have had a similar ending in many ways to what Joker had in the last movie. But like, dang, what was the other? There was two endings. That's the two endings. What was the other ending? Does anybody know?
I have no clue. I'm sure it involved him dying and someone else killing him. I don't know. Like,
was that in Joaquin Phoenix's dream, him just dying at the end of the movie? Because obviously that seems like that was the kind of consistent that they had over all the endings.
Well, the other thing that really stood out and has been a talking point is that he's in solitary confinement, and Lee somehow gets in, and they have a really awkward sex scene, and then like it's kind of clearly established, okay, this is in his head. He's in solitary confinement. But then later it's like revealed to be real and it's what actually happened. And I don't understand the thought process behind anything.
Yeah, nobody does. And not even the people who made it. So, you're kind of in the same boat. Now, I think probably the last thing we can discuss is there was an interesting exchange. And so this is speculation, by the way, but there's speculation that at the premiere of the film in Venice, California, you can sort of see Joaquin and Lady Gaga talking to each other. And some people who claim to be lip readers or have used AI lip reading services claim, and again, this is unconfirmed and hypothetical, that Joaquin leans over to Lady Gaga and says, "That was horrible." And Lady Gaga says, "What? No, it wasn't. Don't say that," or something to that effect. And he goes, "It should have ended differently, or it should have had a different ending," or so, he says something to that effect. And she goes, no, it was good. And that was the exchange. Again, this is like an AI lip reading software. Okay, so it's
I
not
saw
confirmed.
I saw that, but it did kind of look like he said it's horrible. Like in between,
it does look like he said it was horrible.
It looked like it, man.
So here's my question: is do you think that the actors know it sucks? And if so, who do you put the fault on? Like, if this is really true that he had a dream about it, is it his fault, or does he blame Todd Phillips? And surely they know it's bad, right? Like they must know it's bad.
Yeah, I think that well, I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe someone in the comments will have a link to a video where he says it's really good. I've seen interviews where they straight up say, "Are you happy with how the film turned out?" And he like won't answer. He's like, like you can tell that he's like not thrilled by it. So I'm sure he doesn't like the movie. I'm sure that he saw it and was like, "Wow, that was executed terribly." I would personally, as a writer director myself on obviously much smaller projects, I would put the faults on Todd Phillips personally. I mean, he had complete creative freedom with the character of the Joker and failed to write an interesting script and failed to direct a compelling movie in any way. Joaquin showed up and gave another great performance as this character, and Lady Gaga, from what I understand, is very good in the film. Yeah, no, I think Todd Phillips really just went very pretentious with this one and put like his ideologies before the entertainment to the point that it's just a slog to sit through.
Marcel, what do you think?
I'm sorry. I just saw this Twitter post that said Todd Phillips reportedly wanted nothing to do with DC during the making of the Joker 2. Phillips
Yeah, I saw
refused
that.
to take any communication with James Gunn, which is crazy. Can you repeat your question? Because I kind of got lost for a loop.
What I was asking is, do you think that the actors know the movie is shit? And
Absolutely.
you think they do? Okay.
And I do think if it was anybody to blame, it would be Todd Phillips, because I mean he's the overhead director. You know, he's the one that takes all the decisions and puts them out to place, and he had full control of the movie. So if Joaquin Phoenix had some input within the movie, it would probably be his fault too. I'm sure Lady Gaga had some input in some of the music too, because she's obviously she's very talented in music, and she's made good movies before. Like I think a Star is Born or something like that with Bradley Cooper that she was in. Like apparently that was really, really good. And she's not like a bad actor, and I don't think Joaquin Phoenix is a bad actor. I'm sure it's like pretty decently acted, but it all really comes down to the writing, and it also comes down to the directing, and really the intentions of why they're making the movie, which it seems like it's just kind of all over the place. Like the guy literally didn't even want to get any input from somebody that could have really helped him a lot within the movie. Like James Gunn, if he gave you some input, I feel like him giving you input is probably something that you should take just as a good idea. I don't know. I feel like throwing that aside, you don't have to like take it and use it, but at least like fucking listen, or at least like try to take it in a little bit. But overall, I think it was kind of just all around just writing, maybe Joaquin Phoenix a little bit with his ideas, and just the fact that they made a Joker 2. I think the first mistake was just making a Joker 2 movie and greenlighting this movie. I think it kind of falls down to the executives for being like, yeah, go ahead and do this, because it just didn't really make sense overall. Everybody's at fault here.
Well, on that note, hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Anonymous Throwdown Podcast. Please let us know what you thought in the comment section below. We'd love to see your review of the film. We have Batman Arkham Shadow coming up very shortly at the end of the month. Hoping to meet up in person. Go ahead.
Speaking of, before we close this out, should we right now greenlight a 5-minute long Condiment King origin film that we'll post on YouTube, and we'll make it when we meet up?
Oh,
I got you guys.
Ooh.
You have ketchup and mustard in your fridge? That's really all we need.
That's all I got.
Wait,
Condiment King is more than just that. Come on now.
You're right. He has relish.
He has everything.
Yeah, I got mayonnaise.
I'm deconstructing.
All right, so
you see,
our debut short is coming in a couple of weeks too. So stay tuned for that. And we will see you all in next week's episode. Let us know down below what you want to talk about next week. And again, make sure to leave your review of Joker 2 in the comment section down below. See you all in the next episode.